Decreased levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor are associated with the loss of brain cells and neurodegeneration or neurodegenerative diseases, such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and multiple sclerosis. Researchers have found that a patented combination of friendly bacteria significantly increases the level of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. To help us understand this important way towards preventing the degeneration of our brains, Dr. Paulo joins us in studio. Now, Paulo, brain degeneration, it's a scary thing to think about, but what is it actually? What is happening?
Well, in a nutshell, it's the decline of function and the eventual death of neurons.
Okay.
So neurons are the term given to the brain cells, generally, the little cells, not the connections between them. Those are called axons. So it's their decline and eventual death.
Okay. And this is something that's ultimately going to happen to everybody at some point in life, right?
Theoretically, yes. Yes, look, due to the causes and because most people, unfortunately, don't do anything about the causes that are involved in this progressive loss of neurons, then it would affect most people. But it is possible to arrest this process. It is possible to reverse the process. It is possible to prevent the process to some degree.
Right, right. So what causes this degeneration in the brain? I mean, obviously, as we're living, cells are dying, dying, replicating.
Yes,
why does the brain then?
So there are obviously obvious causes such as alcoholism. And alcoholism is another topic because to different people, different levels of alcohol, or the same level of alcohol will have different effects on different people. Then we've got tumors, which obviously will affect brain function. We have chemicals, toxins that get up to the brain, and even viruses. However, the most predominant cause is that over the first 4 or 5 decades of life, there is invariably in most people a long-standing lack, a relative deficiency of many nutrients. In other words, it's never enough to do all the jobs in the body. And as we've discussed before, the body will prioritize its uses. So that means that a reduced delivery of nutrients to the brain means that the functions of the neurons cannot be performed properly. It also means that the toxins within the cells accumulate because they must be removed from the cell. Each cell produces waste material. So that waste material, that increased level of toxins, primarily affects the mitochondria in the neurons, and the mitochondria start dying. Now, neurons contain more than one mitochondria, but eventually it'll get to a point where not enough energy can be produced to let the neuron do what it should be doing, and therefore the neuron dies. Compounding this, as one gets older, 3rd, 4th, 5th decades, most of us have some level of atherosclerosis. In other words, there's plaque on the inside lining of the arteries that feed all the tissues in the body, including those that feed the brain. So the diameter of the artery is narrowed, which means less blood is flowing through. And blood is the delivery system for oxygen and nutrients. So you are providing less oxygen and less nutrients to the same brain that you had yesterday, a month ago, which means that some of it is going to suffer.
And we've spoken before about the fact that these things are happening over time without seeing the impact of them. Then suddenly we start to see the impact, but we're quite far down the line.
Yes, that depends on the condition. For example, you mentioned Parkinson's. By the time we notice and we can clinically diagnose Parkinson's according to a set of signs and symptoms, 80% of the neurons that produce dopamine are dead. So you didn't know it when it was 20%, when it was 30%.
But now it's a big deal.
That's the challenge because it works with, there is an excessive amount of neurons for the minimum job to be done.
So Paulo, we spoke also in the introduction about brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Now this is a very important aspect of what we're talking about. Tell us what it actually is and what it's doing.
For the geeks out there, it's a member of the neurotrophic growth factor family. It is primarily produced by the endoplasmic reticulum, which is the little organelle within each cell that produces proteins. It is also made to some degree by activated immune system cells. But so it has a lot of functions in the brain. It has an impressive ability to regenerate the brain. It is brain protective in conditions such as reduced blood flow, reduced glucose levels, increased neurotoxicity. It's able to protect the brain there. It is involved in the production of new neurons, neurogenesis, as well as in the production of neurotransmitters. It reduces inflammation, neural inflammation. So it is essential for the proper functioning and structural health of the brain.
So what causes the drop in the levels of BDNF then?
Well, there's a long list of factors, but primarily high levels of cortisol. Now that means high levels of cortisol actually should be rewritten as chronic higher than normal levels of cortisol.
Okay.
So which is due to chronic levels of stress
Right.
or chronic levels of your response to your environment. Sedentary lifestyle, so exercise helps for the production of BDNF. A diet high in fat and sugar, so processed foods, is also a problem. We know that patients with metabolic disease, such as diabetics type 2 specifically, all have low levels, and that is because of the uncontrolled levels of glucose in the body. Insulin will also have an effect there. So those are some of the causes of that reduce the levels of.
Now, Paulo, how do we then optimize the level of BDNF in the brain if we know that there's the potential for it to drop as we age? It's probably going to drop as well. So what do we do to optimize?
Well, firstly, we need to avoid all the causes that we've just spoken about. We need to correct our diets, you know, the usual story, the usual lessons about lifestyle that humanity doesn't seem to learn. Okay. You know, so because, you know, metabolic diabetes, for example, diabetes type 2, is a totally preventable disease.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
We've spoken about it before. There shouldn't be one single patient on the planet, so to speak, because it's not caused by a virus or a bacteria. Yeah, you may have some genetic weakness that will cause the various triggers to have a quicker effect on you, but still it is lifestyle related. That can be done, obviously. The other thing that can be done is that, as you mentioned at the beginning, there is a connection between the type of bacteria in your gut and the amount of brain-derived neurotrophic factor in the body.
Yes.
Okay, there is a connection. So those bacteria produce substances which include hormones that go all the way up to the brain and affect the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Okay, okay. Now, Paulo, researchers have shown that there's a specific combination of bacteria that actually will have a fundamental impact on the BDNF in the brain. So this is, I believe, called Cerebiome.
That's right.
What is, and it's a patented formula, I believe. So what exactly is this combination?
Yes, so it's patented because, so Cerebiome is produced by Lallemand, which is a company in Canada that produces combinations of bacterial strains.
Okay.
So a bacteria usually has two names. For example, Lactobacillus helveticus. And then there's, in this case, this one is called Rossell 52. It's a particular strain of this family that belongs to that tribe.
Okay, okay.
All right, and that's the one that has been studied that has a specific effect. So what they do is that under correct lab sterile conditions, they grow these bacteria uncontaminated by anything else. Because these bacteria are present in many other substances in nature, in plants and foods and so on, but they are together with other types.
Okay.
So here we are talking, we have isolated this bacterium. And in Cerebiome, you've got the one I've just mentioned, and then you've got Bifidobacterium longum, but it's Rossell 175. If my memory serves me right. Okay. So again, it's a specific strain. And these strains have been produced since 2006. They have undergone extensive research. They have had 5 clinical trials, which for this kind of environment is a lot of clinical trials because they're very expensive. They have demonstrated 8 modes of action. They are classified as psychobiotics, meaning that they are probiotics that in your gut produce substances that will affect your brain, okay, or will benefit your brain in this case. All right. So this research has been cited in over 1,000 scientific papers. So it is well known in terms of this bacterium. They've had tests that show that it doesn't cause any disease. So it is not something you do at home, basically.
Yes, yeah.
And this specific combination is known as Cerebiome. So Lallemand, the company in Canada, called it Cerebiome. Okay. They patented it. Now, you can't buy Cerebiome. Again, this is one of those things where this company produces for supplement companies. So that is true. Yeah, they increase the levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
So how, though? I mean, what is the action that causes this to happen?
So it is understood that it is not the bacteria, it's not Cerebiome that produces BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. They produce hormones, and that we know. They produce neurotransmitters like serotonin and so on.
Right.
So they produce substances within the gut. Those substances are then absorbed and then have an effect in the brain on the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Okay. Now, Paulo, we went looking for a product that has Cerebiome in it, and we found Ceregut, which is a probiotic from phytoceutics. Tell us, is this something that would be a good option to consider?
Yes. So, in terms of the technical information from the company that distributes it in South Africa, this is Cerebiome. So it's the Lactobacillus helveticus Rossel 52 and his friend Bifidobacterium longum. So it is the same combination that was used in research.
Okay.
It is obviously under a proprietary name. So again, this stresses the importance of reading the ingredients. Okay, and if you're not 100% sure, of contacting the company, because remember that the two bacteria I've mentioned have final surnames, the Rossel and the number part.
Yes.
So you can get a Lactobacillus helveticus that is not Rossel 52.
Okay, okay.
So can you make the same claims? You can't make the same claims. It doesn't mean that it may not do the same thing, but it hasn't been studied.
Right.
Now the Rossel 52 has been studied. So now we can make the claims for that.
Okay, great. Is this something that we should be taking for an extended period of time? Do we take it for the rest of our lives? Do we cycle it into our system?
It has to do with your personal circumstances, personal choices, personal financial ability. You know, all of these things play a role. If I may just say something else, is that, so this has been shown, this combination, not just to increase the levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, but to increase the communication between the hypothalamus, the pituitary and the adrenal glands, which is very important. Increase the levels of neurotransmitters. So all that is related to the brain and the hormones. But in the gut, it has also been shown to increase the integrity of the gut barrier,
so
of the barrier wall.
Correction.
So it has been shown that it improves behavior. That's the way that it is written.
Interesting.
So that's anxiety, depression, and so on.
Yes.
So they don't want to say that it improves depression. So they just classify it as improving behavior.
Okay.
So getting back to your question, personally, I would take this at the very least every second month.
Okay.
Okay. We've got to keep in mind that probiotics, this is a probiotic for all effects and purposes, are not known to take up long-term residence in your gut. Okay, not all the time, because but they are known to spend some time there at least, which is another reason due to which you need to take it regularly.
Yes.
Okay. So it is something which is highly beneficial. The effects are easily seen, especially if you already have the defects in the brain that have been demonstrated and diagnosed.
Right. And safe for anybody to be using?
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay. Also, where can we find it, Paulo?
I believe it's available in health shops and pharmacies.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Always interesting and very interesting. Again, another gut-brain connection that we're talking about. So thank you for your insights. Pleasure.